Hi, this video will show you how to do some language analysis, particularly of non-fiction texts. So we're mostly looking at AQA question 3 from paper 2. So what we're going to cover is some key parts of the question, sort of breaking it down and seeing what they're really asking us. Identifying quotes to the focus of the question, identifying some appropriate language features to analyse, how to structure your answer, and then just checking back through to see that all elements are there. So the text we're looking at is from the November 2017 paper, and both of those texts are about schools. This text, source A, is looking at an inspector looking at a school to make sure that the students are reading well. So the annoying thing about question 3 on paper 2 is that it doesn't repeat that chunk of text that they want you to look at. So it directs you to the particular lines. So here we've got lines 11 to 27, but it doesn't print them again for you. So really pay attention to the lines that they want you to look at. It's worth drawing a box around them. Then the question's asking us, how does the writer use language to describe Sister Brendan? So we've got this first bit, using language and the word how. We're being asked to look at the specific words and language features that writer is using, and to analyse it and get meaning from it, particularly with a focus on the description of Sister Brendan. And this is important because we're not looking at language kind of willy-nilly, we're looking at it with a focus on Sister Brendan. So our next step is to identify quotes using that focus. So we're going to look at how Sister Brendan is described. So I'm going to get the text up on my screen. So this is the extract from line 11 to line 27. So what we want to look for is, how is Sister Brendan being described? So we've got here, it said Sister Brendan enthusiastically. So this is describing her manner. Here we've got a lot of description about her. She was a slight, thin-cheeked woman with tiny, dark, darting eyes and a sharp little beak of a nose. So we could highlight that whole bit and then break it down a bit later. Oh, she looked like a small, hungry blackbird out for the early worm as well. It's got a fair bit of description. She's got a small, cold hand here. Her little black glittering eyes, looking up at mine, so we know she's short or small, or shorter than Mr. Finn. Here the head teacher is taking the inspector on a tour. She's fluttering. She's pointing and chattering and chuckling. So while these are her actions, they're fairly descriptive. They're not simply walking or speaking. They're quite detailed. We've got dialogue here. Does that make me the queen bee? And then we've got a mischievous glint in her shining eyes. So that's just from a quick look through. We've got quite a lot that is describing Sister Brendan. So I haven't looked for language features there. I did mention dialogue, but I haven't looked at language features at all. All I have looked for is anything that describes Sister Brendan. So my next step, after finding those things to the focus of the question, my next step would be identifying language features. So I'm going to look back through those quotes and work out what I can get the most meaning from, and then identify the language features. I might zoom in on the words, the verbs, the adjectives. There was a moment where there were lots of verbs saying she was fluttering and chuckling, for example. We've got simile there. There was a simile where they said she was like a blackbird. Personification, zoomorphism in that they are, I say the writer is comparing her to a bird quite a lot of the time. Adjectives and adverbs, we've got enthusiastically, adverb there, and continuous verbs, we've got that fluttering, chuckling. The most important part is the analysis. It's what I'm going to say, or what you're going to say about those quotes. So if you can't find, a simile, or the thing that's a simile doesn't have as much meaning to the focus of the question, then just zoom in on words more specifically. Okay, so now we've got our quotes, we've found a language feature in them. We need to start thinking about writing it. So these are the stages. You could say it's PEE or PQE. Step 1, the writer uses this language feature to describe Sister Brendan. So we've looked for our quotes, we've found a language feature, that's the language feature that's being used. Step 2, we're going to put our quote in to show the example. And step 3, we're starting to analyse. This shows me, this suggests, this gives the impression, this makes me feel or think or imagine. And moving on to step 4, we'll then zoom in to a writer's use of a specific word and what that tends to show. So let's see that in action. So we've got step 1, the writer uses similes to describe Sister Brendan. Step 2, for example, looked like a small hungry blackbird out for the early worm. This suggests that Sister Brendan is up early and ready to go. It makes me think that she is alert and observant, as well as being well prepared for the visit from the inspector. So I'm looking at what makes me think, what it's suggesting. Then step 4, I'm just developing this further. The writer's use of the specific words early and hungry seem to further suggest how enthusiastic Sister Brendan is about her job, not being satisfied with just doing enough. It makes me think that she is there early with bags of energy, preparing for her pupils to do her best for them. So we've started off with a simile, like one quote, and we've zoomed right into specific words in it and explained what that shows us, what that means to us. Okay, so then we want to check if we've got everything in there. So there's a fairly long list. Have we focused on the question? So we've talked about how Sister Brendan's being described. Have we used quotes that are relevant? So we've used a simile that is exactly about Sister Brendan. Have you identified language features? Yep, we looked at a simile. Have you written at least 2 paragraphs including quotes? In this case, no, because I wanted to show you 1 paragraph. Have you explained what the language makes you feel, imagine or think? And we have. And have we zoomed in on specific words? So we zoomed in on early and another word, and I can't remember what it was. So that's our checklist. And I'm hoping that helps you with how to sort of structure your answer. So what we've had a look at is breaking that question down, looking at the key parts, identifying quotes, so having a look at how we can work out what to highlight, identifying the appropriate language features, how to structure your answer, and finally checking everything is there.